Okay, thank you everybody for joining the Oasis Sales Did You Know webinar series. Today's session is going to be talking about library management and how it doesn't really have to be that difficult. Many people make it out to be the bane of EDA. It is one of the tasks that a lot of us don't like doing, unfortunately, but there are a lot of tools out there today that can make this job extremely simple. Or even hardly have to do any work at all. So let's go ahead and get started here. So just a couple little things real quick about Oasis Sales. If you are not aware of who Oasis is, or if you haven't worked with us much, if you're new to hearing about us, Oasis is a Mentor Graphics and Siemens partner. We have been for over 16 years. Mainly with the Mentor Graphics tools. We're fairly new at the Siemens acquisition of Mentor Graphics, but we do work with the Solid Edge tools and many of the other Siemens MCAD related products, but mainly we've been reselling and supporting the Mentor Graphics products like pads, hyperlinks, Expedition, Model Sim, anything that Mentor sells on the electrical side, we work with and have expertise on. So our team is located mainly in the central United States. So there's 3 resellers in the US. There's Trilogic on the East Coast. There's EDA Direct on the West Coast. And then we have the entire Midwest. So hopefully many of you are from this area, but I know this is going out to everyone around the United States, maybe even some people around the world may have gotten a link to this to join. But we are your reseller. If you're in any one of the Midwestern states here, you can work with us. Go to our website, oasissales.com, and you can get account contact information and my information here as well. So like I mentioned before, this is a series of webinars that we've been doing. We have them posted on our website. So again, if you go to oasissales.com and go to our event page, you can see all the future webinars coming up, and you can see all the ones that have happened in the past, and click on them and watch them from there. Coming up next, our next webinar will be next month. They're usually the second Thursday of every month, roughly. This one's going to be the secrets behind fast and simple schematic design. Again, there's a lot of tools out there, and sometimes you just don't know the secrets behind what that tool has to offer. Many people are trained by themselves on their own. And you learn one way of doing something, you don't learn about all the different ways and new features and tools that are available to make your job easy. Oasis does have a YouTube channel where we post all of our past webinars and other informational videos related to the products and services we offer. So this is a great place to go. You can subscribe. So anytime something new gets posted, you'll be notified. We have links to many other YouTube channels in here as well, so it can kind of be a central place for you to find information and videos. We all know that online resources nowadays are becoming the #1 way for people to get information and learn more about products and how to use something, and we have a lot of those links on our YouTube page. So please subscribe to that and view our content today and in the future. And then again, anytime you guys need help, as a Oasis Sales reseller, we're here to help you. You don't have to go just to Mentor. Here's my contact info. You can email me, give me a call. We're more than welcome to come on site and visit you if you're having some technical issues or just want to learn more about the tool. Please let me know. I'll be more than happy to come on site and sit down with your team for an hour or so and go through items that you just don't understand or you'd like more clarification on. And then lastly, if you have any questions, again, use the little chat window down in the bottom of the GoToMeeting control panel to please ask any questions while I'm going through the presentation. We'll have Q&A at the end of the session, so I probably won't answer a whole lot of questions during. For this one, I actually might even post a couple questions, so please pay attention to that. Looking for some feedback from you, the customers and users of the tool out there in the industry. So, all right. So again, today's our feature webinar is library management does not have to be very difficult. Let's go ahead and get started here. I've got several things I'm going to demo in here as well. This is definitely not all just going to be a presentation type environment for you. You'll get to see certain things as we go through this as well. So library management, one of the biggest questions I always get from customers when I'm visiting them or when they're just, starting to use the tool, how do I centralize my libraries? Or they've been using a tool for a while and they decide, I want to make my libraries more centralized. Well, what a lot of people, I guess, don't really understand is really a centralized library is really just putting something out on the network and sharing it and protecting the folder where that information is stored so that not everybody in the company has access to it. Okay, that's really all a centralized library is. Some products have a tool available that allow you to do all of your editing via a simple centralized application. And one of those is like in DX Designer, when you're using what's called the integrated flow with the tool, there's a library management tool here that I can launch that I guess gives me that perception of I have a centralized location or library by having this one tool that can access all my information in one place. But really any tool out there, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't have to be Metagraphics products. Centralizing a library is really just putting your libraries out on the network. And then if you're in the design team of several people, locking down the folder that you put all libraries in with some type of OS write protection. So don't let everyone in the company have access to changing library content. Let one or two people kind of be the controllers of that content. Now, every user can create a part, say, on their system and then give it to the person that's going to put it in the central location. That helps out a lot of controlling what the symbols look like. Did they miss anything? Scenarios like that. So only give a couple people write access to that location. And then point your tool to that network location. Every layout schematic tool out there should have a way to, point to libraries that are not necessarily on your hard drive. If not, look at upgrading to a tool that does have that capability. So I know DX Designer pads, any of the Mitra products, you can point to any location on a network or even a web server in some cases for library content. So this is, again, one of the biggest questions that a lot of people ask. And it's a very simple thing to do. People just don't realize that storing stuff on the network is really what a centralized library is, per se. So some basic library management tips. Again, store your content out on the network instead of every user storing, their own libraries on their machines. A lot of companies will say, well, my network's not very fast. It goes down all the time. That shouldn't be the case anymore these days. You should have easy access to all that information. If you feel you do have problems, you can always copy that content on a regular basis over to your machine. But the problem with larger work groups is everyone starts making their own symbols. They make them their own way. You end up making multiple parts. People get lazy and don't go out and search for something that's already been made by somebody else, and they go off and make their own device. Well, that just takes time and it's a waste. So it's better if you adopt that methodology of sharing your library content instead of doing it all yourself. I know people don't want to give up that control, but it's something you kind of have to let go of, and you'll thank yourself in the long run. So again, try to come up with some type of standard. You can document this very simply in a Word document or something you stick out on the network, especially if you're in a larger group of engineers. Your company should really have some type of what needs to go on the symbol, how does the symbol roughly need to look. Same with the footprints. What standard are we going to use? What are we going to include in the footprint, not include in the footprint? Those are the types of things. It goes a little beyond what I'm wanting to talk about today to go into detail on these, but really try to come up with some common standard that everyone needs to follow within the company. And in the long run, your company and you will be much happier in using your library devices. Making footprints, try to use the IPC standards. The IPC 7351B spec is out there. A lot of the wizards that are available today are based off of it. It's a great standard. Everyone should be using this. Don't try and go off and make footprints where the pad geometry and stuff, you're just trying to come up with some size. You're going to find out in the long run that your assembly process isn't going to work. The IPC standards are there. Use them. Like I said, if you're a Mentor Tools customer, all of our wizards are based off of this and follow it to the T's. So take advantage of that as well. Store your part metadata in the database, not on the symbols. Okay, pretty much every tool out there has some type of database tool that you can tie into for your library content to help you find parts, search for components, and pull that information out of a database instead of putting it static on a symbol. Okay, if your tool does not have some type of database access tool, look at some other products out there. Again, our DX Designer product has this tool called DX Databook. I can click on a particular database, go in and search for content that I'm looking for based on different properties, and then drag that part onto my schematic. And when I go to the properties window, it'll populate that item, with all of that content. Okay. If you put it on the symbol static, it becomes, very out of date. You can have live information on here. You can verify content against your parts in your schematic back against the database in case it changes. Because typically metadata for components is not a static thing. It's kind of changing all the time in the industry. Things go obsolete, get replaced. There's better parts. There's lower cost parts. I'll go into a little bit more detail about that later. And then having all of your data in a database as well makes it so you don't have to create as many parts. So something like a capacitor. Why should I have to go off and make a capacitor for every single device that I'm going to use in a design? When I can just have one simple cap symbol out there that I'd never have to touch again from a symbol perspective. I just need to enter some data into a database. So that's where using a data management tool for all of your property information of your parts is the best way to go. It's a little bit to get started doing it if you're not doing it today, but you'll thank yourself in the long run if you spend a little time up front working and getting this set up. So use automation tools that are available. I'm going to go over a bunch of those here in this presentation. Hopefully not everyone out there is creating symbols and footprints, strictly by hand, because there's a lot of automation tools that either come with your product or even are free and available on, as online resources. And part of that again is, free library resources that are available out there. And I'm going to go over those here in just a second. So some of the tools that are available to you, especially if you're a Mentor customer, is PartQuest, symbol of footprint creation wizards, plus you can download content that's already created on their website. I'll show that here as well. DX Designer and Pads and Logic have symbol creation wizards in them. Plus we have a couple different wizards inside of Pads layout based on IPC specs for building parts very quickly. And I'm going to show a little bit of that. One of those is the land pattern creator tool. That's one of the wizards there. Vendors' websites, believe it or not, a lot of vendors out there are now partnering with some online resources for library content, and I'll show a few of those here and how you can download library content directly from some of your IC vendors or any component vendor's website. Even some of the suppliers like DigiKey and Mauser are starting to support some of this library content online. So make sure you're out there looking for stuff like that before you start creating something by hand. Library services, there's companies that you can go to actually build libraries for you. And then obviously you have the create manual process that we've all been using forever. But the idea of this webinar is to talk about these top ones, other ways to allow you to not have to spend a lot of time creating library parts and go off and do engineering instead. So free library sources. Again, if you're a Mentor customer, you can go to pads.com. For Standard, Plus, and Pro, there's free libraries that you can download. at this location, pads.com, go to downloads, and then on the downloads page, in fact, I can take you there real quick and show it to you. So here I am on pads.com. I click on the downloads page here. Some of you may have done this already. And if you scroll down the page here, you can go to library, starter libraries, click on that, and it takes you to the page where you can scroll down. You can download the libraries for the tool that you're using, standard, standard plus, or professional. By the way, if you're using the standard tool, there are netlist included libraries in here as well. For those using Pads Logic, unfortunately, there's not a lot of library content that's necessarily free out there for you, other than what comes with the install of that Pads Logic tool. So that's, for those using Pads Logic, that's one thing to consider. Of, you know, you have access to DX Designer, start using that product. Plus you have some data management stuff. There's a lot of advantages of moving over to, say, DX Designer over using Pads Logic, other than Logic is just a very simplistic tool to use. So that's why a lot of people get stuck with it. Plus there's basic libraries obviously included with the product, but for anyone else out there that's not using a Mentor tool, you have what should come with your tool. But there's part vendor websites. Again, I've got more information on that. There's free library services out there as well, along with pay options. And then again, if you're a Mentor customer, for all of the Mentor PCB schematic flows, you can use PartQuest, which I'm going to demonstrate here shortly. So other online library resources, these are available to anyone out there. These are not just Mentor specific. All of these companies support pretty much every major CAD tool, even some of the cheaper free tools out there. These tools can create library content for, but Snap EDA is now being supported for Mentor and all the pads and expedition flows. Accelerated Designs has been out there for quite a while, and these guys have really partnered with a lot of part resources suppliers like DigiKey, Mauser, Parnell, guys like that, and also part vendors. So like Maxim and TI down here that I have for websites, they're actually using the Accelerated Designs tool. And then there's Ultra Librarian is another resource. Optimum Designs is one of the pay-for resources out there. They're the ones that actually provide the libraries for the Pads tools. So that free library that you download is actually coming from these guys. So one of the things you may not understand is the free libraries you get from Pads are not just symbols and footprints. They also give you a database. So this data management that I'm talking about, they give you a Microsoft Access database for all of their symbols and library that you can get started with. There's basic information in there, but you can obviously edit it and change it at your will, assuming you have Microsoft Access. But that's another great option for library content if you're a Mentor customer. So I just wanted to show one of these vendors' websites real quick. So if I click on TI here, this will take me to their website, and you can see they're partnered with Accelerated Designs. You can search for a part. I'll just use their example here of an LM22. You can see the content here, and then you can download their what's called their BXL file. This is kind of a Ultra Librarian data format that you can download. Okay, when you download that, you can then open that with the Ultra Librarian tool, which you can actually obviously gather from right here. You can download that and install it on your system, and then you can download that file. And when you open that file with the Ultra Librarian tool from Accelerated Designs, this is a free tool to use. You get viewing information about the part, but as again, you can see they support many different products out there. Mentor Pads is one of those that I can tell it I want to export out my content for, and then I can say export selected tool, And I mean, you can get full views of it. You can see the part, you can see the symbol, you can see the 3D model, and you can download the 3D model of that component. So this is why a lot of people don't understand or know that's available out there. But having access to vendor site information now is a very powerful thing. Okay, so if I hit export, this will export my content, and with the Ultra Librarian tool, it puts it into, I can't remember where the install is, but it puts it in the install directory, so you can import that data into your central library and DX Designer and pads and assign the 3D models and such. So that's a great resource. Accelerated Designs is also used by PartQuest. You'll see that here as I go into that tool as well. So, all right. 3D model resources. A lot of people ask, well, where can I go out and get 3D models? Obviously, I just use the Google engine and found all of these, but these are some of the top ones out there. And this is the question I want to pose to everybody is, what other 3D and online resources have you found that work for downloading 3D models that I could share with future people or other customers? So I'm working on posting that. And okay, so if everyone could please just use the chat window there, and if you could put a link into a website that you found outside of the ones that I've kind of pointed out here already, that would be great to know. You know, I don't obviously get to talk to this many people at one time, so it's good to get feedback from everyone as to, you know, what resources you're using besides what comes with the tool that you're working with inside of pads or any other product you're using today. So again, let's get back to data management here a little bit. So again, Microsoft Access is a great resource for you setting up your own database for managing your property content. SQL Lite is a free tool, very simple to use. Actually, I'll demonstrate that here a little bit and how that's used. We use that with our demo database when I show customers, but it's a very simple product to use. Excel spreadsheets you can use as a database. A lot of people don't realize that, but you can connect any of the data management tools out there typically just to an Excel spreadsheet, which is everybody knows how to use Excel. So you have no excuses out there that want to say, well, I don't have time or I don't know how to use a database tool to create content to use a data management application if you know how to use Excel. And then the best way or the biggest benefit of using a data management tool is being able to tie into your corporate PLM ERP systems. The data is real time. The only problem with most PLM ERP systems for a company is there's not a lot of engineering content in the system, and it can be a little bit more difficult to get access to. You'll need a little IT support probably to make it work. And you may have to set up your own engineering database. So doing something here at the top may be something you have to do as well. But it's very easy to merge a secondary database into the main database. So again, don't be afraid that this might be too much of a task. It doesn't really have to be that difficult. And all of this setup and time you invest up front is just going to make everything you do in the future so much easier to deal with in finding parts and working with all of your library content. All right. Lastly here, before I go into some demonstration stuff, is some things to consider when you're making your library parts. A lot of people may not think about this, and then they have to go back years later and go, I don't want to do that. I got to add all this stuff to all my parts. And again, it may take time if you haven't thought about this today, but definitely consider doing some of these things to your library, either updating them or from this point forward. So one thing to consider when building a part is, how do I place all the pins on one part, or do I break it up into smaller, do I place all the pins on symbols, or do I hide some of the pins? This kind of used to be a popular thing in the past, but it turns out that a lot of times hiding pins can trip up your design sometimes. So it's not a good idea to really hide any of the pins on your symbols. It may be cool to say, okay, I want to hide all my power ground pins, and then assign properties to those items, but then you forget about those types of things and you make mistakes in your design. So it's a lot easier to say, do the second line, you take a part and even break it up into pieces and put all the power grounds on one part, and then you can kind of make your schematics look nice by having a power ground page, even instead of having all the power ground stuff on the part spread out throughout that symbol. Think about putting all of those types of items on its own little symbol and have it on its own page. So it's not a good idea to hide pins. Everyone that I've heard that does it ends up having a mistake at some point in time in their design. So any parts that you even download, use in your libraries from old, or come with the tool that you're using and they have hidden pins, I would highly recommend that you modify those parts and add those pins to make them physically visible, on your symbols. When do I decide if I break up symbols into smaller pieces? Obviously, your pages of your schematic can only be so big, or you only want them so big, so you have to break up symbols into smaller parts. Generally, you definitely want to start considering breaking a device up into multiple pieces if there's 50 or more pins. Some people like to do it even with less. It depends what you want your schematics to look like, how readable you want them. So if you've got a part that is going to connect to multiple things within your, the content of your design, break it up into smaller pieces and move it over multiple pages instead of having one page with everything on it. So, and then, do I make gated devices? Do I separate the symbols out into individual pieces? We've been doing this for years, obviously, with op amps and inverters and anything that has the same function in the same chip multiple times. You break them up into multi-gate devices. But some of the newer engineers out there may not know that's a thing. So consider that when you're making your parts. The biggest thing in breaking up symbols is making your schematics readable. Spreading out the same part over multiple pages, and letting the tool manage everything is a good thing to consider. More and more tools out there are starting to have DRC functionality. So in order for DRC capabilities in a schematic tool to function, you have to have certain properties on your components. So make sure you add that capability to your symbols and your footprints, so that you can really use the DRC capabilities of your application. So like DX Designer can check to make sure you have all outputs tied together, inputs, or that you've got too many outputs or inputs tied to one output. There's a lot of cool electrical engineering DRC functions you can build into a part, but you have to add the right properties to it. Now, I need to know if a pin's an in or an out. I can put load information on a pin and source information on pins. Take advantage of those capabilities in your tool. Simulation data. Simulation is becoming a bigger and bigger part of electrical design. Everyone's talking about, digitalization of your design process. Do a complete digital mock-up of your design before you ever produce the first product. Mentor and Siemens are a very big component of that, and so am I as well. I'm a believer that you should never produce your first prototype if you haven't simulated the majority of that circuitry in some fashion to make sure that first design is going to work, because designs it costs a lot of money to produce that end product. So use things like signal integrity tools and analog simulation products, power analysis tools. They're all available out there. If you're a PADS Standard Plus customer, you have some of this stuff right at your fingertips. I talked about this in our last webinar with doing basic signal integrity. So, but you need to put properties on your parts to make the whole process of using those simulation tools, again, easy. And that's where adding that information onto your schematics or your library content will just save you time. Part property data. Don't put part property data necessarily on your symbols. It becomes static and old. Use data management tools that you have access to. All of our mentor tools that we sell anyway come with data management applications except for PadLogic. So take advantage of the tool. It's there for you. Use it. I'm going to show you some database tools here real quick that you can download for free, and they're very simple to use as well. Grouping parts into library categories. You know, don't put all of your parts in one big folder. It's going to get unwieldy after a while and make it hard to find items. You know, create folders or libraries based on, you know, major categories of components. So like capacitors, resistors. You can even break up caps into two categories. You could have polarity-based ones and non-polarity-based ones. You know, ICs could be broken up into multiple categories, even depending on, you know, how many devices you're using currently at your company. So consider that when you're creating your library content, and I'll show that a little bit with my Essential Library, how we broke that up as well. Use a common naming scheme for particular types of components. You know, when you're making caps and resistors, it's nice to start the symbol with cap and res or something. If you're doing a digital part or an active part, start it with IC. It can make it easier to filter, find, and deal with those types of library components. And more 3D models are becoming a big part of libraries nowadays. Pretty much every tool out there has 3D capability on the PCB side for doing placement and DRC checking. So make sure you're finding or you're downloading 3D models and putting them in your library for all of your components now, so that you don't have to look for stuff later on. And then PDF and website links. Many of the tools out there have the capability of having active links in their parts, and I'll show that a little bit here as I go into the demo stuff. So, which is going to take me to that right now. So, let's show you a little bit about PartQuest real quick before I move on. You know, I've talked about, you know, vendors' websites and some of the content you can download and some of the online resources they're using out there. But for all mentor customers out there, and some of the other tools have their capabilities for doing this as well, you have access to this free tool called PartQuest. It's just partquest.com. I don't know if you've used it or started using it yet or not. Here you can see there's a lot of DigiKey part numbers that we have library content available to you for, but now we're including online library creation capabilities as well. Okay, so let me just search for like a comparator. Here, I'll just do a generic search. So you do have to have a Mentor SupportNet account in order to make this work, and you have to create a DigiKey account as well to make this function, but that's all part of the instructions on how to set it up. You also need to, for pads, you need to download a little integration tool, which the homepage there walks you through. There's a download link that can take you to that. The help system that's included with PartQuest is very self-explanatory in what you need to do, and downloading the tools to plug in to make PartQuest work. But the idea here is, again, I can go to DigiKey, search for anything I want, or this website, it searches the DigiKey database for components. I can find the part that I'm interested in. I can expand that out, and I can see if there's library content or not. In this case here, there isn't any library content. Let me go back up here to one of these. I think one of these has content. Actually, I made parts for that one, and I think that one as well. These might all be the same. So yeah, here we go. Here's a part that I haven't looked at yet. Down here in the bottom, you'll see if there's content available. DigiKey has recently partnered with another company. So if I do choose symbol, you'll see there's two options here. for where you can or whose symbol you can download. But this lets you know that there's a symbol available, so I don't have to go create anything. So I can choose the accelerated versions or the Samixis part. I can look at the footprint. I can choose the footprint for one of those vendors. And then I can simply download that. So after I set up my little settings here in ParkQuest, I can tell it, where I want that data to go when I import it into my library, and then I can download that content onto my machine. So here I'm just using their library content. It's going to give me a file to save here in a second. I'll go ahead and save that, and then, oops, probably can't run that from there. If I double click on that guy, it will unzip it for me real quick. And then if I go into DX Designer, I can simply go into import ParkQuest parts, and this will go through the process of importing this data into my library for me. In this case here, I'm actually telling it to import it into or add it to my database as well. So I have a folder here called demo PO. This is my ParkQuest or PQ. This is my ParkQuest data that I just downloaded. And here's that actual component. So with a couple clicks, I've got my library content for me available. I can use searching features in here. I can drag that part onto my schematic now. Zoom in on it here, and you'll see there's what the symbol looks like. I could even get a preview of what the footprint looks like for that device. If I don't want to use that preview, I can open up the actual PADS decal previewer. Oops, and when I clicked on that part, when I click on that part, I get a preview of my footprint right there in the schematic. I can do that with any part in the design at any point in time, by the way, for those that haven't used DX before. More importantly, I can look at my properties here, and everything that's in that database is now on that part. So just in a matter of 30 seconds, I found a part, I download the library content, I've added it to my schematic, and I'm ready to go, and everything's there for me. All right, it's already in my database and everything. So ParkQuest can be a very powerful tool, and again, using the database management tool as well is very powerful. So I mentioned earlier about linking to component data. That's another advantage of getting your data from ParkQuest. Is if I right click over a part here, well, you'll notice in the properties window, there's some links in here like a data sheet and such. And in DX, I can right click over part, go to hyperlinks. I can say open photo, and it will go out and grab me a picture of what that part looks like. Or if I want to see the data sheet for some reason, I can right click over that part, hyperlink data sheet, and it will go out and grab that data sheet for me for that component. So having active links on your part, again, is going to make your job and life easier. And if you want, you can download those data sheets, and you can update the links in your database or add the links in your database so that they're local on a server. They don't have to be off the web at all. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's kind of nice if you download them, because you never know if these web links are ever going to change by any means. So you have to be careful with that one. But this one here also has a supplier link. I'm not quite sure why that's not being added to the part, but if I'm picking a part, I can actually click on that supplier link. Oh, that one seems to be blocked for some reason. I need to figure out why that's not working right. But you can have supplier links in here as well, so it can automatically take you to that supplier's website, so you can look at that. So that's the other nice thing about using a real data management tool, is I can have as much content in here as I want. I don't have to put all of it on the symbol. When I add it to the design, I can just have it in this window, so I can click on it and see information, and I can decide what I don't want to add on to the schematic itself. So that's why data management tools are so powerful. And again, all of our PADS tools come with this. Unfortunately, PADS Logic doesn't have this capability, but everyone has access to the DX Designer, depending on if you have a standard or standard plus suite. So again, take advantage of that. Very powerful and quick way of doing library content. So that's the idea of this seminar showing you how you can make your life easier in dealing with parts. So down here, I picked another part, but you notice it didn't have those little icons next to it. And if I click on, oops, I didn't want to do that. This is actually another new feature Mentor is offering, is I can request a part using this request feature now, and I could actually go off and have a library service build this for me. So that's a new feature that's been added to PartQuest recently. But what I wanted was choose symbol. For generic parts, they'll give you generic symbols, but I need to make my own part. So now I can click on create symbol, and part of the PartQuest now is the wizards for building symbols and building footprints. So again, I'm going to simplify my life here in making parts. So I could have looked at I can have the data, have access right there to the data sheet, and go through, and I can look at that part. Okay. And another little tip for making components here is try to do as much as you can in Excel. So that's actually what I've done here, is I created an Excel spreadsheet from that component. And with PartQuest, we have a template that you can download. It doesn't show it on here, but in the help here for PartQuest, let me close out of that real quick, and this data sheet. In the help here for doing symbol creation and uploading a CSV file, it gives you a link to a template that you can download to know how to format your spreadsheet for what content you need, what headers need to be called and such. So these are the basic ones right here. Like I just put in the name of the pin number, the direction. Again, this is important for a lot of DRC tools, and what side you want the pins on. Okay, and then you could just save that out of the CSV file. But it's a lot easier doing stuff in here. Like I can copy stuff out of a data sheet and put it in here and rearrange it any way I want very quickly and easily. And then I can go back to my tool and I can say import CSV file, go out and pick up the CSV file I saved, hit open. And it imports everything for me. You can see there it creates a simple little graphic of the part for me. And then I can hit return. By the way, I can add more stuff or change things on the fly there as well. But when I do return, it's now going to have that symbol assigned to that part. So when I download it, I'm going to download that symbol to my system. And just like I did before with Databook, I can import that PartQuest data. So scroll down here. So you'll see there's the symbol. Gives you a little preview if you hold your cursor over it. And I can do the same thing for a footprint here as well. So I think I've had a couple questions pop in. I might try to answer real quick because they're kind of pertinent to some of the questions. Let's see. Yeah, one of the customers posted that someone online posted that he uses Excel for doing the database stuff. It teaches you the basic concepts, which is, yes, is very great. And then doing Excel is pretty much a must when you're dealing with high pin components. Got another one post that is, very important feature of using Excel instead of trying to do all that stuff by hand. I've had people tell me they work on an entire day on a 500 pin symbol for their schematic tool, when I've created 1,000 pin part for some people, just as an example, in 10 minutes, copying stuff out of a data sheet and putting it in Excel, and then using wizards to create your part. So again, choose footprint. There's no footprint option here, so I can do create footprint, and this will take me into an online footprint creation capability. Okay, so again, this is something fairly new for those of you who use PartQuest for quite a while, but this is now available, and you can see it's not fully up and running yet. They're going to be adding more stuff as time goes on here, but this is an awesome way to help you build parts online. Okay, so I'm going to choose just the basic SO part here in this case. This is very much like most of the wizard tools out there. For those, all of you that have ever used LP Wizard, or Mentor's calling it now Land Pattern Creator, you know, many of the other vendors' tools out there have actually copied this method of doing it. But you basically enter the physical geometry on a data sheet, which again, I have access to it right here. It shows you the dimensions and where it is on the little 3D model view here that I can move around. I can zoom in and out on in this view. So I'm just going to type in some information here real quick about an 8-pin SOIC basically. And you'll see the model dynamically updates while I'm typing in, or you're typing in your information. One. This won't take very long here. Move on to the lead information. They give you several different lead options, and you can see there's ghosted images of things, other options that are going to be coming in the future. But right now, I'm going to go with a gull wing design, and the pins are going to be on the long side of the part, and I want it in this rotation or this rotation. It's up to you. You see they give you a nice little picture again of the pin geometry. I can zoom in and out if I want to read it better, but if I continue to scroll down, I can put in, you know, all my pin information now. So there's 8 pins. Again, everything updates dynamically, and then I can start entering my data related to pin information. Really take a second here to finish this out. Okay, so there's basic information about my pin. You can see it dynamically change the shape and size of that on the location of the part and such. You can see the 3D model of that part. Continue on, I can change the material type of this. So one of the things that's becoming more popular nowadays, and you're going to continue to see it as the industry moves on, is simulation tools for shock and vibration and such. So that's why we're allowing you to add mass information in here and material types, because that's very important for doing shock and vibration simulations of your PCB. Continue on to the validation stage. I can choose the 3 IPC standards for the type of footprint that or data I want to output. And actually, you're going to get all 3 of them when you do it. But the tool will do a validation check on your part for you. And again, you can see when I went to the validation stage, it actually shows the footprint underneath, so I can see the pad geometry, solder mask openings, what the kind of like the footprint's going to look like basically when I import it into my tool. So now I can go back. I can go back and change things if I want, or I can go back to my DigiKey PartQuest window here. This will add that data to that component, and any other parts that is using that same footprint called out in PartQuest will also show that as well. Here, so scroll back down there. Now you'll see the graphics of those items next to those devices. By the way, a couple of quick little features in here. I can tell it I want to favorite this part. So if I want to come back to this device later on, don't have time to finish it right now, I can go into my parts, go to favorites, and that part will be saved for you now in your favorites, so that you can come back here and download it or work on it later on as well. Or if it's a common part you're going to use, you can store it in there. You can also do stuff by project. But now again, I can download this content. I can tell it where I want it to go. So when it imports into my central library, it goes into the right place. I can hit download. It'll download these new parts that I just made. So again, in a matter of a couple of minutes, I've created my content instead of doing this by hand. Come back over here, unzip that real quick, go back into DX Designer, and tell it I want to import that content. This will import the content into your database. Oh, that one seemed to have some problems for some reason. Need to figure out what happened there. But if it would have completed, I'll need to figure out what happened there. It would have added it in here. And again, my central library. If I go over to my central library tool here and click on my demo folder. So the central library tool that's with the integrated flow and paths allows you to see all of your library content and then break up your library sections into what they call partitions. This is the same thing as if in paths layout or logic or even DX, you call a folder. This is really just a folder that exists out on your network that you name a library. We're just giving you a central place to look at it. Again, this is what people would consider centralizing your library, but it's really no different than creating folders and libraries that you would today discretely. So here I have that folder called demo, and there's the content that's in there. The nice thing about this tool is it does let me see everything in one location. That is an advantage to this application over just doing stuff discretely, as I can see the symbol associated to this, and I can click on it and view it. I can see the footprint associated to this, and I can click on it and view it. I can edit the data here. I can go into edit, and this will open up the symbol editor from this location, where I can now edit that symbol and make changes to it if I want. I can do the same with the footprint. I can right click and say edit, and this will launch the footprint editor. By the way, there's a couple little things I'm going to mention on for paths users, some tips, some things you can do in your footprint to make your life easier. So here's that symbol that I can now go in and edit if I want. So I can move pins around, I can remove attributes, add attributes at the static level if I want. Not a good idea though. Mainly you put them on the symbol just for display location purposes. I can adjust properties based on rotation if I want. So now when I flip the part around inside of DX Designer, it will automatically adopt that view. So anyone that again is new to DX Designer, that's actually kind of a cool feature. So let me actually go to my capacitors here and add a capacitor symbol that I had made correctly. Sorry if I'm getting off track a little bit, but I wanted to show this real quick. So in here, you can grab these little drag handles now and you can rotate parts. You can see as I rotated, all the text and everything rotates appropriately the way you would expect it to. Okay, a lot of tools out there will try to do some of this for you manually, but or automatically, but they don't necessarily get everything exactly where you want. Where with DX Designer, you get to control that via your different library views of that symbol. So that's an advantage of our application over many of our competitors, is you have more control over those items. But just a couple quick little tips in paths layout. This is library content that was downloaded from PartQuest. So this was made by Accelerated Designs or SimStech. But things like part type name, this doesn't need to be on the symbol. You can delete that off. When you add polarity marks to your design, like dots or whatever, some of the tools use a little star symbol. You don't want to put that in there as a graphic. And the reason why is you can't move it when you're in the layout. So the best thing to do when you add polarity information in pads anyway is to add a polarity property on the decal, and then you can use whatever you want. I like to use a period. Some people might want to use the star symbol, but then you add that property in or change that property on the footprint that is automatically downloaded. So let's say I want to add new label. Come in here and go down to polarity. And I want it on the top, or I could put it on the silkscreen top layer. You could add one to the assembly top layer. You can put them on any layers you want. You can add as many as you want as well. You can have one on every layer if you wanted to. But then you can control the size of it. So I'm going to make, since I want it to be a circle, I'm going to set the line width and the size the exact same. That may seem counterintuitive, but you'll see here in a second when I click OK, you'll see it ends up now as a nice circle, a big circle that I can move around. Okay. Again, the advantage of this is when I put that footprint inside of a layout, because pads layout doesn't allow you to modify silkscreen stuff on the fly. And I can move that attribute around because it's a property, just like a reference designator is a property. You can move it around. I can now move that polarity dot anywhere in the design that I want. So if there ends up being a via right there where that dot is, I could scoot it off to the side. So that's a little tip out there for those that have been using pads for a long time and have that issue. Another thing to really think about when making parts is to add extra pad stack information on your device. Okay, so a lot of the library content that is downloaded will automatically have the solder mask and silkscreen pads added, but I like to put stuff on the assembly layer as well. So when I create my assembly drawings, I can turn pads on if I want, and makes my assembly drawings look a lot nicer for visual aesthetics. So something else to think about adding. But you'll see there's a placement outline on here. There's silkscreen outline. A place assembly outline, silkscreen outline. This you can add an IDF outline if you don't want to get into the true 3D stuff, or you may not find a model for your 3D. You can put a special shape in your part on layer 20, I believe it is, and then output that into an IDF file. And you can also see it in the 3D view in pads. In fact, if I go in here to 3D view for this symbol, it should show that. Assuming I would have the view information shown. So anyway, I'm not in here to talk about how to make parts in pads necessarily, but you would see the 3D model of the part. And this is for those that want to do 3D stuff in pads. This is where you'd add your 3D content at this point. So in here, I can import a model. It's interesting. Why is import 3D model grayed out? But this is where I would import the 3D model for this item, and then I can save that off. Oh, this part didn't come in via a design. That's why this is not available. So when you assign 3D models to your parts, you need to enter that part through a design. And then from that design, you can save off the 3D model information to your library so that it can be used over and over again from that point forward. So Mentor is actively working on adding 3D model assignment via the central library, but currently you have to do it from the PCB itself. So for those that were wondering how you go about putting 3D content in your library, that's how you go about doing it. So just a couple more things here, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll look for questions. Customer mentioned about where to put the origin of a part for pick and place purposes. That is very important. Make sure the origin of your part is always in the center or where the pick and place location is. That way, when I run scripts out of pads layout, the centroid information that I get is coming from where the pick and place machine would pick up that part. So that's very important as well. All right, and lastly, obviously, our tools come with land pattern creator. Many of you may have used this. This comes free with all of the pads tools now, so I can use the land pattern creator for making parts. Okay, many of you have probably used this tool in the past. It used to be known as LP Wizard when PCB libraries originally introduced it. But this is where, again, you enter your parametric information data or data off of a data sheet. It builds the footprint for you. You have a wizard that's included. It allows you to export that content out of the wizard and then import that into your library. Okay. We're running a little short on time here, so I can't go into a lot of detail on that. But if anyone has questions or wants to see how to do this, please send me an email, and I can either create a video centered around that, or I can send you information about how to do that. And then lastly, another way of getting symbol content is I can create from the central library tool here. I can use the wizard that's in the tool. These are kind of the old standard ways of doing stuff in DX Designer, where you use this wizard. This is very much the same wizard that is being used on the online website now. Again, you can use a spreadsheet. I can copy content out of a spreadsheet, go into the wizard, paste it in, and it will automatically build that symbol for me, and I can do fractured parts as well and save them off into my library. So a lot of people don't realize this is here. Take advantage again of this tool, if not the online tool on PartQuest for basically doing the same thing. All right, so let's go ahead and see if anyone else has any questions. I've kind of answered some of them here. Does the land pattern creator come with Expedition? Unfortunately, today I don't believe it does. I think that's still an add-on option, but you can always use the one on PartQuest, which is free to you. You don't have to pay for it on the PartQuest tool. Is the land pattern creatable in pads? I just pointed that out. It is available in all the pads tools that you buy. You just go to all programs, go to your pads group, and then go to library management, and you'll see pads pattern creator there for you, and run it just like I did. Let's see what other questions we have. Talked about that one already. Mentioning the origin and pick and place capability. Do you have an option to create rectangular pad stacks? I know IPC uses rounded edges. Just curious. So I'm trying to think if, I think the land pattern creator allows you to choose oblong, or did I close out of there? I believe the land pattern creator allows you to choose oblong or rectangle pins. So yes, that capability is there. Let's just go in and make something again here real quick. Demo D-shaped rectangular pin. Oh, that was a bad part to choose. Let's do a cloud flat pack. Here we go. So those ones are rounded. I thought it actually allowed you to choose a different pad shape in here. You may be able to go into preferences and change that, but I'm fairly certain that capability is there. been a while since I've actually sat around or played with this tool. So, but I am certain you can set that up. I'd have to go investigate a little bit further in how to do that. So, good. Someone mentioned they'll go out and start using the PartQuest tool. Hopefully everyone on here saw the value of that and will go out and use it. It is free to use, so you might as well take advantage of it. Someone mentioned there's another tool out there called PCB Library Expert. That is a tool that you can buy, I believe. That's like Land Pattern Creator. That does have more extra library capability, but you do have to pay for that tool, I believe. I don't think it's free. So a question about when are they going to add more parts to the PartQuest tool for package types. I believe early next year they're going to be adding more package information. I think they're also going to allow you to download the 3D model that's created in that view. So currently you can't download the 3D content, but earlier this next year, 2018, when it gets its next upgrade, more of that stuff will be available to you. So, all right. Lastly, I just wanted to point out real quick some of the library database tools here. So I talked about SQL Lite. You can download this database, SQL Lite database browser. This is kind of your GUI for entering data. I can go in and open a database. I can create a new database from here. I'm going to open one that I'm already running. I've kind of gone over on time, so I'm just trying to hurry up here real quick. Let's see. Oh, Databook, there's my database. I can add fields in here, but I can browse the data and I can go in and enter new content. I can copy apart an item, duplicate that record and replace the data. So database management is not something that's difficult. Everyone's afraid of it because it's something they don't do on a regular basis. But I mean, I've never used this tool. I downloaded this DB browser a couple days ago and started playing around with it and learned how to use it. So don't be afraid to create a database. If not, revert back to Excel. You can find some quick help on how to create multiple sheets, how to set your data range, and then set that up and use it with the DX Databook application. But doing this is just going to save you a tremendous amount of time, make it easier for you to search for parts. You can add all of any attributes you want in here. Don't be limited to what you see here. Feel free to have as many things as you want based on a certain category. And different categories are going to have different properties that you're going to choose from. So, all right. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar. Oops. A couple more slides. Remember, there's another webinar coming up December 14th, same time. You should receive an email for that, but go to the OASIS website and you can register for that one as well. Feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call if anyone needs help. And that concludes our webinar for today. So again, thank you everyone for joining the questions, and look forward to seeing you at one of our webinars again. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.